podcast episode. We have a lot of awesome topics to talk about. So today it is episode 7 of the Industry Leaders podcast, and we have Milos Sarcev on our podcast. I like a little bit of spice with the accent here. And kicking off the podcast, let's have yourself introduce yourself to our listeners. Can you give us a little bit more about info about when you started in the industry, as well as what's your background and journey up until this point? A brief history, because you've been in the industry for a long time.
Okay, I've been in the industry for the longest time. You're from Bulgaria, so I'm from close country of Yugoslavia. I was growing up in Serbia, upper part, in the north, and basically in 1987, I decided to leave the country and come to the United States and compete at the pro level, at the highest level. I made a kind of 5-year plan. I remember leaving and writing in the journals. I want to come to America and within 5 years win Mr. Universe, turn IBB professional, qualify, compete at Olympia, and make a living off of bodybuilding. So that was initially my plan, and I accomplished everything in 4 years. So actually 1 year in advance. Which a lot of people from your country, my country, maybe back in the day, wouldn't even think was possible.
Yeah.
I remember my family, friends, they were all discouraging me. Like, what are you going to do? Go to America and compete with these guys? You have zero chance.
Yeah.
I said, I don't understand. We all human beings, physiology, flesh and blood, everything is possible. So if I do everything that is to my power to improve each and every day, in 4 or 5 years, I should be, good enough to compete at that level. And unfortunately, I was. On that note, anybody that is listening to this podcast, it's absolutely 100% possible. If you're going to put your work, bodybuilding, fitness in general, healthy lifestyle is going to get you there. Accumulation of a repetitive hard work is going to pay dividends.
Well, one of the things that you just mentioned there, Milos, it's funny because Maria and I were just talking about it offline, was about like journaling and writing down your goals and really signaling that intention that this is what you want to do. So it's interesting, like quite a few of the people that we have interviewed seem to have a very similar philosophy and outlook to how they approach things in life.
And it's funny
who fails to plan plans to fail. I mean, this is a kind of thing, as Arnold Schwarzenegger was saying, if you start going somewhere and you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there, right? So when you do have a precise goals, it puts a little pressure, and deadline is always the best motivator, because if you, postpone it, I have a time eventually, or no. Put exactly the plan, what you want, when do you want it, how you're going to get there. So, realistically, I mean, now when I work with some of the amateurs or beginners, they told me, do you think it's possible? Like, yeah, in a 4 years period, you can look like, you never looked at the weight in your life. And within 4 years to 5 years, you can look like a professional bodybuilder, 100% guarantee. I mean, if you do everything right. And then, I came to Clean Health a couple of times, to do the training camp. And I'm sure that you're aware of my maximal hypertrophy.
Oh, look, we'll get to that. We'll definitely get to that. I think I want to give you an interesting insight. It might be interesting for you. It's back in 2000, right? So I had Maria and a few of the guys ask me, like, how long have you known Milos for? And I'm like, well, personally, we've known each other for about a decade now, a bit longer. Yeah. And he taught me many things that, I'm very grateful for the stuff that, you taught us in nutrition and training back in the day, because, a lot of that we've integrated into the stuff that we teach around the world now with Clean Health. And, if I go back to 2000, though, that was the first time I really heard about you when I was 18. And it's an interesting story. You don't know this. We never spoke about this, but I'll tell you. You'll enjoy this.
Yeah,
I was at my granddad was down in Sydney for the Olympics, so he was one of the torchbearers for the Olympics. And if you remember, he was a Commonwealth Games gold medalist weightlifter, competed in the Helsinki Olympics, He was friends with Bob Hoffman, good mates with Reg Park. He was on the cover of multiple Reg Park magazines back in the day. And even up until his death in 2015 in his mid-80s, he still was an avid bodybuilder because he competed in the old Mr. Universe competitions and stuff like that. So he was staying at our house in 2000, and he was one day we were training in our home gym. I was 17 years old at the time, and he was showing me how to do skull crushers properly. And he's like, you've got really good genetics, Dane, obviously. And he's like, if you really, really try your best and whatnot, one day maybe you can, become a professional bodybuilder. And I'm like, oh yeah, I love training. Maybe, we'll see. And he's like, these are some. He pulled out a magazine, and he's like, this is my favorite physique from today's era, and it was you.
That's great.
So it was like showing photos, I think, from about 1998, 1999. And that's when I was first introduced to you. It was through my grandfather in one of the old bodybuilding magazines in my home gym.
I mean, you can imagine what that means to me to hear these kind of stories.
Yeah.
I always like to make a difference in the people's life, and then as I coach, I coach so many other people. But to know that my physique inspired them and they wanted to look like this. You see, I'll tell you something that's interesting. And I'm glad we have a Maria here also, because I want to see from a woman's perspective how it is.
Yeah.
For me, I'm in Yugoslavia. That's 1970s, right? I didn't know that muscular physiques even exist, right? You just see around yourself, it's hardworking, people just, work for a living. You don't think of, man's physique can actually be muscular. And then I remember getting the first magazine. I've seen Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sergio Oliva and Frank Zane, and everybody go, oh my God, somebody can actually look like this? What do I need to do to look like that? I mean, this was, now people are going to laugh because that was back like 40 something years ago. Once I realized that a human's body can look like that, be muscular, I mean, for me, it was immediately, what do I want to be? Skinny, undeveloped, fat, obese, kind, out of shape, or muscular, right? So instantly, the same day, I've seen that magazine and say, I want to be a bodybuilder, right? And of course, I'm not saying that every man should be at the professional bodybuilding level of development, but muscular, in shape, strong, right? When you look at statues in Greece or Rome, what do you see? You see muscular physiques because that was a standard. That was something that it should be. On that note, now, question to Maria. I know that a lot of ladies, including my own daughter, right? They say, "Oh, no, muscle is not appealing. It's not necessary. It's not important." On that note, I wanted to ask. So you want to tell me, including my daughter, it's okay for a man to be weak, undeveloped, or completely out of shape, or you would prefer somebody that is strong, shapely, and muscular?
I definitely, strong, shapely, and muscular. And one thing I wanted to also mention, coming from, that European background, and like, even for women were always you have to be, slim, feminine. And, I introducing it to my family, I'm like, hey guys, I'm getting into bodybuilding. I love this. Like, I saw a muscular physique and I was like, I can do that I've seen women, building
Yes.
up. I'm like, I can do that. And I can do that in a way where I still feel feminine and strong and empowered. My family was like, no, you're not. You're not doing that. Like, you're not picking up those weights and doing that. You're going to look manly. And I was like, you're getting intimidated by a 14-year-old girl weightlifting, wanting to be strong. And here you have macho men, like saying, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't do
Yes.
that. So I think, yes, to the, being strong and masculine and healthy, just being, being.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think even for that, like, Milos Farad, last time we met up, I was, I think the last time you came out was about 2015, about 6 years ago. Like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
30, I'm 39 now, 6 kids, right? So for me, yeah, I know, right? So for me, training and all that, it's, yes, there's the aesthetic component, but a lot of it now, like, having muscle, being strong and heading into my 40s, like, I'm fitter, I'm healthier, I can play with my kids, I can run rings around a lot of my kids' other, 99% of them, the other parents. Like I don't look or feel my age, and I attribute that to bodybuilding, or the art of weight training.
Yes. I mean, as you know, it's not just weight training. It's a discipline that goes along with it, all the nutrition and recovery, paying attention to the details. And in Bulgaria or in my country, not even to this day, people pay attention. It's like you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a taste, or even worse, we need the calories, we need, to have energy. So they eat just like, as much garbage food, just to have enough energy.
Yeah.
And then you see at the ages of 40, 50s, every possible disease that they can have, and diabetes, metabolic, anything that can go wrong usually goes wrong.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they point fingers as we are doing something that is unhealthy. It's extreme.
Oh, yeah. I've been told that.
So as Maria's parents told her, oh, no, stay feminine, don't train, because that's what is normal, that's what is usual. But believe it or not, at the same time, my parents were telling me no, you don't need to be muscular. You don't need to, if you want to spend the calories, do some construction and make money. Don't just lift weights for nothing. But we live in a different times now, and I'm glad that actually you, Maria, think also man should be muscular. Now you define what level of development, but it's really art. You design and artistically put your body together. For me, the bodybuilding was never just blindly putting a muscle bigger.
I don't have an answer for that. Is there something?
And our special guest, Siri.
That was Siri, yeah, my friend. But anyway, so when I went to Clean Health, right? You've seen Dane. I always tell you can have a minimal, so-so, optimal, or maximal results. And to define that in every aspect of our lives, we always want the maximal results. So on that note, when you step your foot in the gym and when you sit on the dinner table and decide what you're going to eat, if you really, again, just do something approximate and, okay, don't pay attention to the detail, you're going to end up in that, average category. But if you really want to, go for a high development and world championships and professional elite, then everything that you put in your mouth is going to matter. Everything you do throughout the day and in the gym is going to matter. And that's what I was teaching in all those classes that you attended.
Well, I think one of the big takeaways that I know myself and a lot of other fitness professionals got, back then from you was exactly that, like the importance of specificity, attention to detail when it came to, caloric consumption. So, what goes in must come out, or if it doesn't come out, it stays in. Talk to us a little bit about kind of like your bodybuilding career, and then obviously how that evolved into coaching. Because, as you know, a lot of bodybuilders, think about the majority of bodybuilders from your generation, they're not active now in any way, shape or form.
Too many. For me, it was my decision. Of course, if somebody would force me to do it, I would never do it, right? So if you do the passion, just like I said before this interview, I tore my hamstring yesterday, and today I still went to the gym, to do the upper body because I'm not going to use it. So it's that love of the sport and it just feeling great about training and being in shape. I'm 57, almost 58, and I don't feel that age. Okay, it's my choice that I make every single day. But as I said, not too many of my colleagues are now really in shape. Unfortunately, we have like Ronnie Coleman, prime example. We love him.
Yeah.
That heavy duty kind of training, did so much damage. He had
took its toll.
Yeah, so it's not really train hard, train heavy, go heavy or go home. It is really training smart. As Lee Haney was saying back in the day, stimulate, don't annihilate. If you really, Dorian Yates, Mike Manzer principles of heavy duty, go all out. What does it mean, go all out? If you truly, honestly put everything online, it's just a matter of time. It's not, it's if it's going to happen. It's just when it's going to happen. You're going to tear the muscle, you're going to tear the tendons, ligaments, something. Because body is not designed for this kind of pounding, especially if you push it to the limit.
Yeah.
At the same time, look at Dexter Jackson. Okay, he finally retired. Finally, after competing in almost 100 pro shows. I was proud owner of a highest amount of pro competitions entered. I did 72 pro shows, and Dexter Jackson actually passed me in 2016 in Australia. I was backstage with him, and he says, "I got you." And then he could continue competing until this year. Look, he saved himself, and he could compete at the highest level at the age of 51. Another Australian champion, there was Vince Taylor that came to Australia at the age of 51 and looked the best ever. My first year as a pro in 1991, Albert Beckless, who was 61 years old, beat all of us in this Niagara Falls Pro Invitational. So right there, you can see like, oh my God, you can keep this level of excellence even at the late age. And then if you do like really research, and I did many of those, when doctors would talk about it, human cell is human cell. If you initiate it and feed it and stimulate it, it's going to respond properly. It's just like, are you going to damage it? This is why I would like to, say more to the people when they design their workouts, and they would always have that ego training. And if Dane does 10 reps, I would try to do 11, or I would put more weight in this kind of competition. Which healthy competition is always okay, but it has to be reasonable and smart. You go to the gym not to break the world record in weightlifting, but to stimulate the muscle and cause hypertrophy or specific growth or muscle tone or body fat loss. So it is kind of different training. So just to conclude for you, because you said most of my generation is not really active anymore. Yeah, I think that most of the guys at the time were going with this go have your go home attitude, and they created way too many injuries. And once you have to compromise because your shoulder, your elbow, your knee, your back, hurts, then workouts cannot be very successful.
I said that's one thing my grandfather said to me before he passed. When I said, if there was one thing that you could do in your training career, like what would you have changed? And he said, I wouldn't have lifted as heavy as frequently, because by the time he was in his 80s, he'd had 4 hip replacements, so 3 on one side, 1 on the other, shoulder replacements, like every kind of replacement or type of thing that you could imagine he had. And I think a lot of it was from that ego lifting. Like, I think, I guess what I'm taking away from this, and probably our listeners, is that do you believe that, like, obviously your training principles around giant sets and things like that, and obviously, stimulating rather than annihilating, has led to that increased longevity for you yourself as a bodybuilder and then also a coach?
I honestly believe, because I don't know if you still have online, but you did the interview with me, and it was posted for many years. I don't know if it's still there. And in
I remember that.
Yep. And in this interview, I disclose everything. I still do a couple of exercises for each body part, a little bit heavier, but controlled, not like this all out. I'll tell you, I trained with Mike Menzer, a couple of times before. And then I trained with Dorian Yates 10, 15 times, maybe even 20. I trained in Gold's Venice. I trained in my gym, Colosseum. I trained in Birmingham in his gym many times. And Dorian was true to his theory. You warm up and you go all out. So for me, and Dane, and I'm sure Maria, you too, as you train, can you imagine having just one warm-up set for any body part, for any muscle, any exercise, and then go all out? I mean, for me, this was like, and I really didn't believe it that this is how Dorian trains. So I wanted to train with him, and we did each body part, and really he was like that. I was terrified. I mean, I could squat like 650 pounds, no problem. for reps, 6 reps in sets. What should I warm up with? 1 plate or 2 plates, and then go to 6.5. It just doesn't make sense. But those are the theory. If you can nail the nail in one hit, why keep hitting? This is the thing. Well, you can overhit the nail also, which happens with everybody. Dorian Yates tore the biceps and the triceps, and every heavy duty proponent that I know of had muscle tears, and then ligaments and tendons. You mentioned my giant sets still of training. Okay, I do believe in these 2 different types of muscle hypertrophy: sarcoplasmic and myofibral. Myofibral, yes, you have to go a little bit heavier, but it can be controlled. And I would use it actually after previously doing sarcoplasmic, which means pump, repetitions, volumization. So once you prepare the muscle with all these muscle contractions, I would change the tempo, range of motion, angles, grip, stance, anything. Make it interesting, challenge the muscle. And what I would say, Dane, if I would train you, okay, and you can bench, let's say 315 pounds for 10 reps, or
Yeah. Well, you did train. I mean, and just to give the listeners, like, I was first introduced to your training methods in 2009 in Rhode Island with Charles Pollock, and obviously rest in peace. Rest in peace. I mean, still, it's still a sad thing even now. And the workout, it was me and a bunch of other there was 6 other personal trainers from around the world. Me, Nick Mitchell, Juan Carlos from the DR, Francine Savard from Montreal, Damien Ma from Ireland, and then Wolfgang Unsold from Germany. So there's only 6 of us there. And, like, we were all, it's 11, 12 years ago. It was an A1 to A17.
Yes.
legs. And we literally, like, I think half of us were like vomiting at the end of the workout because, remember Charles, it was very, very macho, like, if you didn't lift, you were a girl, and he was up in our face. And I remember abusing. And then I'm like, because he was obviously teaching us what he learned from you. And that's obviously got me on to you. And then obviously when you came out learning from you directly, I think the first time, we were doing programs in about 2010, 2011. I think the first time you came out was 2012. I mean, it was just, if for listeners out there, like, if you've read about it and seen it but not experienced it, like, you have to experience it, because those workouts were like, the toughest of my life, hands down.
The point that I was trying to make, if I would train you, or I would train Maria right now. And what you normally do, I was mentioning for you, let's say 315 bench press, you can do 10 reps. Okay. I would put 225, 2 plates instead of 3. And then tell you, now be your own worst enemy and do this 225 as hard as possible for yourself. Do least amount of reps to cause the failure. And how are you going to do that? You're going to control the tempo, right? You're going to have to do super slow and centrically. And then you're not going to use momentum and power in the concentric part. You're going to, contract, squeeze. And there's a fine line between time under the tension and contraction, and time under maximal tension and maximal contraction. All of us, can contract, but not contract maximally. Dane, your microphone is off again. I don't know if you see it. So I would try to make exercise more challenging, so you can reduce the weight and the load. Your muscle doesn't know that you reduce the load. Right. If you really contract like your life depends on it. Okay, if you go full range of motion, stretch, it has to be maximal lengthening and maximal shortening. But this is what I'm saying. When you shorten and you contract, and you can see this in the gym, how people train, they squeeze, but did they really try to empty the battery, so to speak? So if you really squeeze so hard, and I tell you this, I was in Poland once in Warsaw, and I did a seminar in front of like 400 people. And I told them, okay, everybody now stand up from your chair and imagine that you're doing a concentration biceps curls. Okay, concentration bicep curl. Okay, but this time they had nothing in their hands, nothing in their hand. And I said, okay, but you're gonna have to squeeze like your life depends on it each and every rep. Okay, so it looked stupid and ridiculous and everything, but I said, please bear with me, just do it. And squeeze as hard as you can every single time. Oh, within 6, 7, 8 repetitions now, they start laughing because they were exhausting. They couldn't even do with nothing in a hand, right? So normally you have a dumbbell, you have a some load, and your focus is on the load. This time there was nothing in the hand. There's no more focus on the load. It's focused on the muscle, and I'm talking 1992. At that time, this mind-muscle connection wasn't really established. People would do the exercise because concentration core is for biceps, so let's do it. No. There is a specific way of doing it.
Yeah.
So once you apply this mentality, any exercise for every muscle, feel it, stretch it, and then contract it maximally, and see what is the difference. It's much safer. It's much more effective way of training.
That was like one of the things that I personally had to teach myself when I started training, because I didn't have a coach at the time. And I think it was just, looking up to other people doing these things and thinking I have to just go very, very heavy in order to build the muscle that I wanted to build. But I was never feeling it in the right place. I was compensating for certain movements just to get the weight up. And I think one of the things, and it kind of ties directly in what you're saying, something as simple as like a leg press, right? I was like, leg press, I want to feel it in the glutes. I really want to do the position, so I'm using it. But I was kind of just mindlessly pushing it. And it got to the point where I was like, hold on a second, let me lower the weight and really just focus on squeezing the glutes before I even start, just tensing them up before I even use them. And then I would like do them with like a body weight squat or something like that. How you said with the bicep curl, I actually did that right when you were saying that. I'm like, you can make something so difficult just by putting all of your attention to the muscle that you're supposed to be using, which I think is so fascinating because it doesn't necessarily always have to be the load. It's just the intention and attention to what you're using when you are moving that load.
That's exactly the way. I mean, I'm glad you said it. But you see, if I was saying to Dane, bench 315, and his mind is telling his body and every primary and secondary mover to just bench the weight. No. If I would tell you do 20 to 25 and squeeze the weight up, push it with the just chest contraction, just like you were doing that for glutes, you want to just use the glutes. Before you were doing a leg press, which means your body is just going to push that sucker with everything that you have. And that's really a difference when you look at the physiques nowadays, and you have that shape, aesthetic, nicely defined physiques, is they start incorporating a mind-muscle connection. And if you can see it, I mean, within 5, 6, 7, 10 reps on the first set, you can already start feeling that pump in a muscle. A muscle is changing. You have a complete direction. Okay, psychology over physiology, mind over the muscle. You are the one in control, not vice versa. Workouts can be so effective. And then, as Dane said, I would do it in a giant set form, which means I would do like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 exercises. Dane did as much as 17. Well, yes, why not? But that's extreme. Yes, why not? I would always,
I literally couldn't feel my legs were fucked up for about a week after that, at least. I mean, like.
So now I know who I have to thank. My coach, actually, I think he's worked with you and has done a seminar with you, the one that I train with. And he hit me with the giant sets before my last show. And I talked to him today that I was going to speak with you. And he said, it's all thanks to you, man. Those workouts would kill me, like actually kill me to the point where the next day I wasn't working the next day. I was killed. And I'm thanks to you. The giant sets were killer.
Yeah, that's for me a maximum stimulation. Because when I define my thought process is maximal stimulation of maximum amount of muscle fibers of a targeting muscle group, whatever you train. So listen, if you did this for a prolonged period of time, a body's adaptive mechanism, you would adapt to it. and you can adapt to mediocrity or you can adapt to elite. So this is why I would just, every time I go, when I came to Clean Health, I don't care that, people there never train like that. I put them immediately into the fire,
Yeah.
and they all survived. And then you can see that, we can push the limits. And that's all about in life and in sports. Push the limits, set your limits higher and reach them. And then when you reach them, go for even higher.
Talk to us about like with giant sets, and a lot of people that have followed you for a long period of time, like the hyponaemia advantage and all that type of stuff. Like, how did this kind of whole philosophy around giant sets come to fruition for you? Because obviously it wasn't something that anyone else was doing. You kind of just took a bit of this and that and brought it together.
Yeah, to be honest, it's not like I invented. There is many people that were doing giant sets before, including Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was one of the, as you know, famous Weider principles. So, once I realized, okay, hold on a second, what is this? Superset is when you do 2 exercises back to back. 3 set is when you have 3 exercises. A giant set is 4 or more. As you know, when you do something very heavy and your nervous system have to be involved, you need a lot of time for recovery. But when you do it something lighter and it's more sarcoplasmic type of hypertrophy training, muscle recovery is, I wouldn't say instant, but is much faster. So I would not allow muscle to rest enough. That's why I would go from one exercise to another. So what I would do is incorporate from every angle. If it's chest, I would do the upper, middle, lower, inner, outer chest. You find the exercise that stimulates specifically, and then I would change the stimulus. I don't know if you've seen, some of my work. Tempo. How about the tempo? So especially when you work with the Charles Poliquin, and you would have a 3 or 4 first number eccentrically, and then 0 or 1, in a stretch position, and then explosive or 1 concentrically, and then normally 0 or maybe 1 in the peak contraction, right? That's, prescription for pretty much every exercise. For me, I said, why not 5 seconds? Why not 6? Why not 10? Why not eccentrically? Why not concentrically? Why not in a peak contraction? So literally, now imagine if I make you do the 10 repetitions, and the first repetition could be 10 seconds eccentrically, second would be 9, and then 8 and 7, stuff like that. In the first set. In the second set, I would change it, and I have you concentrically. Now you do 4 seconds down on which, depending on the exercise. Then there's many exercises that I would like you to be in a stretch position. So I will make you, let's say, pullovers, they like that, or dumbbell flies, for chest. 10 seconds in stretch position, then 9, then 8, and stuff like that. Then also the 4th category is in peak contraction. Try to do leg extensions, right? And then do the 10-second squeeze on the first, and the 9 and 8. So I would combine, all these different things. Stimulus, you constantly confuse the body, and then you're constantly establishing that mind-muscle connection. So if you take your new client that really, they're inexperienced, they're novices, and they never really established that mind-muscle connection, how are you going to accomplish this the best? By prolonging the tempo and prolonging the contraction. So focus on the muscle, squeeze like a maniac, or control it. So there's no more momentum and movement and range of motion. It is controlled, eccentric, control concentric, and that establishes that mind muscle.
Yeah.
And then, beginner can improve dramatically. I mean, that's what I've been focusing. You see, people think that I just train professionals. Most of my clients are everyday people that I tell them, I'm only interested to train you if you are after the highest level of excellence you can achieve with your physique, which means I don't want you to waste a day, waste a meal, waste a workout, waste a single rep in every set. I don't want you to do the 10 reps for me. I want these 10 reps to count. Don't count the reps, make them count.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of difference. And then there's, as you know, a lot of busy people that don't have a commodity of training every day, so they train 3 days a week. Okay, if every workout is maximally stimulating and the nutrition is perfect, transformations are unreal.
Yeah. And I think, touching base a little bit about that, it's not just your training, it's your nutrition as well. And I want to kind of get into the topic of nutrition and your approach to nutrition. And tell us a little bit about a diary that you've kept, your food and training journal that you've had for almost 15 plus years, right? And how is your approach to nutrition different than, your average person?
Yes, you see, and I know that Dane made a great software and plans, and I mean, so let's define it again. Uh, Scientific research, right? So all of us would start with this. You read what is served to you. So you read recommended daily allowances, what is recommended nutritionally, okay? And then you apply it, which happened to me when I started. My family, they're doctors, mother, father, sister. Sister is also professor in medical university and a laparoscopic surgeon. My father was doctor of science of neuropsychiatry. Oh, read the studies, okay? But my father would always say, don't follow a lead. Whatever you read, still consider everything and try to make it better. So initially, he was not recommending me higher protein intake because a recommended allowance was like what, 0.36 per pound or 0.8 per kilo. It's sufficient. Sufficient for who? And sufficient for what? We want to build a house. We can build a small little dog house or a big castle. For a dog house, we don't need much building material, right? And bricks.
Yeah.
For this one, we do. So if I just want to be average, which I was, doing initially, following the rules by the scientific books and the nutritional experts, what they recommend, I would go nowhere. Because you start with all of us have that basic metabolic rate, how much our body is physiologically needing daily. And then you add everything else that you do, thermic effect of exercise, thermic effect of feeding, non-exercise thermogenesis, all these things. So that's your daily requirement. But
Yeah.
my daily requirement is not to maintain. My daily requirement is to increase.
Right.
What does it mean? Well, there's no scientific books that is going to tell you, oh, increase your protein. Oh, no, time your nutrients. Be very specific. So for me now, to briefly tell you, I always want all my athletes, my clients, myself included when I started, I want constant influx of nutrients, most important nutrients. So at any moment on any day, I would have everything needed not to compromise. Because if something is not there, one nutrient has to be converted to the other. So it's a compromise. For me, if I want to be maximally anabolic, but I want to be constructive, I have to have a sufficient amount of protein. So that's the first thing. And I would have it in frequent meals throughout the day. I had 8, believe it or not, because you mentioned those journals. I had 8 meals a day, and I had to have my 450 to 550 grams of protein daily. So there was like 4 grams
Yes.
per kilo. Okay, and I started with 1 and 2 and 2.5 and 3. Higher the protein I started taking, the better results I was getting. And interestingly, I tell you, Dane, because one of your colleagues before, Andy Bell,
Oh,
is your coach from also Clean Health. He was also one of my clients, and when I told him the same thing,
Look, I remember, obviously Andy coming and spending 2 weeks with you, I think, in the DR, and then coming back after 2 weeks, and I was like, what
I promised him 10 kilos. He was my online coaching client, and whatever we were doing, he said, okay, he was increasing, but I said, like, no. If you come and I have a 24 hours to manipulate everything, train you twice a day, have you under the control, I guarantee you're going to gain 10 kilos in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He got on a flight like next day because what he said he has to lose. he gained 11 kilos in first 10 days.
Oh my
Okay, he was just here 2 weeks ago. He came after
Oh,
that
okay.
experience. Yeah, he just came here again to gain 10 kilos, and he did.
How's he going? I haven't seen him in a long time.
But the reason why I mentioned him, and just side note that how much he gained every time, is because he also started with 3 grams and then 4 grams, and then said, Milos, how about if I go 5 grams or 6 grams? I said, like, listen, I never did it myself, but why don't you try it? And he got the greatest gains at 6 grams of protein per kilo. You remember the Nasser Al-Sambari, one of the top professionals. When I started working with him, I showed him my journals, and then he was looking like, oh my God, you small guy comparatively to him, you're eating 500 grams of protein? I say, yeah. What are you taking? Oh, he was taking 250 to 300. And that was 1994 when Nasser looked normal.
Yeah.
1995, when he went into the 600 grams of protein because he wanted to do it more than me, you see what happened. I mean, from 94 when he was average to the 95 Night of the Champions in Olympia, transformation was, incredible. But so now you guys are coaches, and also you have to be very specific. So maybe you're not going to be open-minded to suggest the amount of protein that I'm suggesting, because some doctors are going to tell you, but possible renal toxicity. I said this for 30 years. Show me a single study published even today
Yeah.
where healthy renal system and healthy kidneys would show whatever level of protein to have a toxicity on the system. It's not. So, first thing that I would do for Maria, for you, for any client, I would make sure that you have a sufficient amount of protein throughout the day. So we have an influx constantly of amino acid. So for whatever they're needed, they're available. Because if they're available, not there, compromise. Okay, now you have to get them somewhere. So you have to break down something to get them in. So this is the first requirement. And then the rest of the equation is energy intake. We can take carbohydrate, we can take fat, we can take combination, depending on if you are endomorphic, ectomorphic, mesomorphic, if you are a little bit, off, you have more than 10% of body fat. So I manipulate according to the goal. But in general, if you need to lose body fat, I would create fat burning phases of the day, and then maintenance phases, and then anabolic phases. So let's say that Dane just wants to be like Andy Bell and put as much muscle as possible, and he's fairly lean. So I don't even have to expose him to the fat burning phase, which would be very low carbohydrate, no carbohydrates whatsoever. We do some cardiovascular activity, in the morning. So your substrate of utilization, your energy that you'll be taking is going to be fat. So you didn't eat anything. You get up in the morning, you do the cardio, fat is being used. Fat from where? From your body fat, for sure. So you initiated fat loss. Then after this, okay, now we have to maintain. Give you enough calories from one to the second meal to the third meal. You're not training at this time. You don't need necessarily carbohydrates. I would give you protein and fat, no problem. Or if you are blessed, and like I said, if Dane doesn't need to lose any body fat, I would give you protein and carbohydrate according to what you need for next 3 hours. Next 3 hours. Until the time of the training. Training is an anabolic phase of the day. Dane, you mentioned my hyperemia advantage theory. Hyperemia advantage, if people are not familiar, I want you to really pay attention, because I hope it's going to make sense, and I'm going to sell you on it. Maria has about 5 liters of blood in her whole body, and Dane maybe 6. Right now, as we're speaking, maybe 10% is in your muscles, because it's not active. There's no need for increased blood flow to the inactive muscle. But when you train, okay, only when you train, 60, 70% of that blood goes in the exact muscle that you're training. That's like, and I said this many times, even in that interview to you, like flying the airplane from United States to Australia and having no passengers. Okay, if you just go there with empty plane, it makes no sense. So when I would train, if my blood is empty in sense of I don't saturate the blood with all the nutrients that I want at the time when I'm training and when I'm doing this all muscle contractions, because every muscle contraction, opens up the cell. They are ready for uptake of the nutrients that are there. If they are not there, nothing's going to happen. Like no passengers would fly from America to Australia. So my passengers would be amino acids, and creatine, and glutamine, and betaline, and citrulline, and L-carnitine, and whatever is beneficial. It's already in pre-digested state.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be digested. It's already there. Now you make these crazy giant sets, muscle contractions from all over the place, different stimulation. Everything that is in your blood is going to be inserted in exact muscle that you're training. So this is that anabolic phase of the day. And if I would train Dane twice a day with this kind of system and saturate you with as much nutrients as I believe that you would need, you would, like Andy Bell, gain 10 kilos in 2 weeks, no problem. Now
I might take you up on that next time you're in Australia, mate. You can come over. You can come over. Got the water, the beach. Like we'll train twice a day. I miss it.
Serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you did it in your gym.
I did. We did in the gym, but it was. I think we only did 5 days.
5
What's
days.
that? Yeah.
In Perth, I believe, everybody stepped on the scale first day, and everybody had to gain like 5 kilos in 3 days, and everybody did. So I don't know if you did this in your gym, but there was supplied all the pre, intra, post workout supplementation. They had to eat my diet, not their diet. I can't eat. I'm not hungry. No. I ate, as I said before, and Maria mentioned my journals. 8 meals a day. You think I was hungry for 8 meals a day? I look at that chicken breast and I think
Oh my God.
the last thing I want to do is eat it. But hey, I want to grow. I want to compete with Ronnie Coleman and Kevin Ronnie and Flex Wheeler. Yeah, I'm going to do it because every single day I do it, I'm closer to my goal. So on that nutritional part, Maria started maybe digressing left and right, but it is caloric requirement, okay, and timing.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is don't compromise. Give body the nutrient needed for throughout the day, duration of a day.
Yeah.
When you train, you're going to need the glucose as a fuel, carbohydrate. So this is when for sure you need to have a carbohydrates with your proteins. The rest of the days when you can change energy nutrient from carbs to fat. There's no problem. And, to tell you the truth, if you're not super lean to begin with, when I start training you, I would prefer to create that little bit fat burning phase. So you burn fat as you're making the muscles at the same time, which is a little bit more difficult and specific, but very, very possible.
Yeah, and you've mentioned, and this kind of ties back into what you're talking about, the recommended amounts, right? There's lots of studies that say this, but you're following, your own basis of it. And the question I have to follow up for that is, and you've mentioned this in previous videos like JTV with Mad Max, that you believe the scientific studies being carried out on topics like protein absorption and the maximal rate of protein synthesis are being carried out wrong. On the wrong types of subjects. So what can you explain a little bit more about that and give a little bit of background on that for our listeners who may not be familiar with that?
Well, okay. I don't know the gentleman that you mentioned, but look, I do a lot of Brad Schofield. I got his book, and I know that he did the constant research and everything. So you mentioned about protein absorption and muscle protein synthesis. You see, there were those rumors before you cannot absorb more than 30 grams, 40 grams per sitting. How ridiculous is that? You absorb 100% of that. Now, what percentage is going to go for muscle protein synthesis? That's different. That depends on your stimulation, correct stimulation, and then nutrient consumption. You just heard me say I was taking 500 grams of protein daily.
Yeah.
That has any study ever been done on somebody that takes 500. The other thing, if you, Dane, and I right now want to do the study, okay? What does it mean? We're going to send the application for the people, okay? We need 20, 30, 50, 100 subjects to come to do a certain study. Okay, what kind of study? We're going to try that high protein intake and muscle stimulation through training. Who's going to sign up? Do they sign up pro level athlete, or they're going to sign up some people who would just like to take a daily cash for being there?
Right.
Those people, do you think they are as specific as I was, doing 8 meals a day and documenting everything? No, they're like what kind of control study? You want to tell me that you're gonna 24 hours a day watch these 30, 40, 50 people that came for a study, and they're gonna really push it to the limits? I mean, most of the times they're untrained subjects or novices, and then they would document little something. What I screamed so many years, if you really want to do the study, get elite pro bodybuilders or amateur athletes. They are doing this daily. They're documenting their stuff. They can really. I can show you, my each and every single day, every single meal to a gram, because it didn't matter to me. For me, is check the meal, check the day, check the week, check the month, check the year. I would have I tell you, 2 or 3 maximally bad days in a year when I didn't 100% succeed with my plan. Okay, I deviated a little bit. Maybe there was somebody's birthday. Maybe I had something that I did. But I was as straight as an arrow. And really, a lot of people cannot comprehend that discipline. But if you have a goal and you know that this is exactly where you should be doing, it will be much easier. So
I think that's one of the things from the just listening with that, like, and what you were saying before. People sometimes, I think, don't look at things in the context, right? So a lot of your philosophies and methodologies, you've used to help people achieve the highest levels of physique enhancement, right?
Yeah.
So the average person does not understand, it's one thing, for example, to read a giant set workout, yeah? But then it's another thing to actually go through it and apply that mind muscle connection and do it. You might read it and say, okay, well, that workout, I'm going to expend 300-400 calories. Well, actually, if you do it properly, you're probably going to expend 800 calories. And so I think it's the context and the level of discipline that you come from. I think, obviously it's admirable, but one thing that I took away from it, back when we were doing a lot of stuff before, was to look at things in the context, which I think you're
Yeah, but listen, when you say like average people, and average people, for some strange reason to me, they are accepting this gray mediocrity, or unless you want a black or white and go to the extremes, right? So I always tell her, when I said I was in clean health, and all these people I see them for the first time. I don't know their level of fitness and strength and endurance or anything. I immediately exposed them to my giant sets, and they all completed. Why? Because I was very confident, right? That with somebody like me there, pushing them, pushing them, pushing them, the levels of strength and endurance that people have way exceed what they believe. They limit themselves in that mediocrity of grayness. We all have to respect the science, okay?
Yeah.
There's a published studies, and that's what everything is based on. But what I'm saying is, you cannot do the, let's say, plantar flexion and an unexperienced, I'm not going to say grandmother, but some subject that is not athletic, it's not in a top condition, it's not going to make a difference. You need to do the serious study. And this is where I said the bro science, because I would be considered bro science, not the pro science. What I mentioned, grammar practice could be heavier than 1 ton of theory. And really, when you apply what you read, okay, and it's not working, what should you do? Continue doing what is not, creating results, or change it? And this is why I changed my dietary approach, caloric intake, the amount of protein absorbed in each meal, the freedom of taking more, and then timing. You see, there is calorie is not a calorie. Carbohydrates are not the carbohydrates. There is so much differences. Protein is not the same, protein, right? The vegetarian or an animal, complete, incomplete, and then easily digestible or slowly. So if I delay delivery of my amino acids from, let's say, beef protein that takes forever to be digested, it's different than if I would have a whey protein that brings those amino acids into the bloodstream available in 25, 30 minutes. So again, to clarify, for me, ideally, human race would function, most perfectly if they give the body what is needed. Now, I'm sure that you too are familiar with this intermittent fasting approaches.
Yep.
What does it tell you? Okay, and then they are so loud about it. Yes, please, you don't need to eat all day. It's good for longevity. And so instead of eating frequent small meals and supplying your body with nutrients throughout the day that you can use, you're gonna suffer, deny the nutrients for 16 hours or more, and then you're gonna overload with. And typically, what I've seen with intermittent fasting, they even give you the freedom to eat whatever you want.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a healthy approach, please. And what I like to, mention to the people, use your brain. I use that Socrates quotation. I cannot teach you anything. I can make you think. This is what my father always insisted. He doesn't tell me what to do, but he gives me enough, information that now, if I think I can apply it, and it's going to bring me to the common
That's
sense.
that's what I tell people to do with COVID.
Yeah, with COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys
Actually think about it. Don't believe everything you see on the news.
Yeah, I'm so sad about situation in Australia about the COVID. Oh my God, I really hope that you guys are gonna start living a normal life soon.
Oh yeah, look, it is pretty extreme here, but like we all go through our trials and tribulations. But one thing I wanted to ask about is obviously like from a career standpoint as a coach now, this is something that you've been doing going on since the '90s, and quite an extensive, I guess, career and business in coaching. You've done supplements, stuff like that. Like, what would obviously you didn't get into bodybuilding to grow a brand and grow a business. But what would you say are some of the reasons why you've been able to sustain your business and your career so long and achieve some great levels of success with that?
Because I hope you guys realize, even in this interview, I'm very passionate about it. I breathe this all day long. I am it in a sense. So when you do something with a love and a passion, as my father told me also, if you do something you love, you're not going to work a day in your life. I don't feel like I'm working, right? I mean, look, this is super pleasant discussion with you two about the subject we all love, right? Of course, we are making it as a podcast and so people can hear it. But in all reality, I enjoy talking to Maria and you, Dane. And of course, in normal conversation, I would now question you left and right about the same things that you just questioned me. But we are in this industry because we love it, not because we are put there and now this is our job and do 8 to 5 job and then go home and regret wasted day, week, year, and a life of doing something you don't love.
Agreed.
So if you are in this, I'm in this for life. I'm sure that 10 years from now and 20 years from now, if you have another podcast, you're going to hear me say the very similar things.
Yeah, and it's quite evident through everything that we've talked about today that you are passionate and you've been passionate for so many years. And I think it's that commitment to being dedicated to it and disciplined. You've been disciplined year after year, and it's really brought you the success your physique, your health, your successes in the industry in general. And I think to wrap up our chat today, what would be 3 things that you would like to share with those in the fitness industry? Like, what would be your 3 takeaways for us to take after listening to this podcast?
3 takeaways. Well, prepare me for this, but if I would give advice to anyone, first, be honest to yourself. Okay, define what do you want, and then find the best way of getting it. Okay. Secondly, set the higher goal. I mean, I said this in the beginning. You are from Bulgaria. I am from Serbia. Everybody, I was laughing stock of a nation when I said before, I'm going to go to America. I'm going to be a Mr. Universe, win it, and then go to Mr. Olympia. People are literally laughing. Like, oh, what did I tell you? I'm going to go to Mars. Yeah, there were people that would eventually get to the Mars. Okay, so set the higher standards and goals. Believe in yourself. Okay, be passionate about what you're doing. I love it. There is a difference. There is a fine line of because I want it, but I don't really love it.
Yeah.
So or do it with the love. It makes a whole another level. So really, bottom line is you have to love what you're doing, and then do what you love and let it kill you. That's what they say, right? Do what you love and let it kill you. I mean, do it really to extremes. A lot of average people, your mothers, fathers, and friends would tell you, but don't go to extremes. Everything in moderation.
Stay comfortable.
If I'm going to do something, it's never going to be moderate. If you are already putting yourself into something, whatever it is, whatever aspect of life, I'm going to do 100% or not at all.
Yeah. And that's advice for anything and everything. It does not have to be just bodybuilding. It's whatever you set your mind to. Believe in yourself and give everything that you have. Even if it feels like it's impossible, just give it your all and it'll come. There's no such thing as you can't. You can make it happen.
Exactly.
You just have to keep on trying. And I think our chat was awesome today. Thank you so much for joining us on our podcast. You are a legend, and I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to have you and to be able to talk with you and learn from you. And I look forward to watching your successes grow year after year.
Thank you so much, Maria. It was very nice to meet you. And Dan, it's great to see you. And you didn't age a day. I don't know how you do that.
Well, I mean, look, you and I will jump on and have a quick catch up after this, maybe on the phone, so it's easy for you. But I mean, yeah, look, likewise, just echoing what Maria has said, mate. I mean, from a personal aspect within my career, you've been a massive influence, a positive influence, and then also along with a lot of our students over the years. So thank you. Very grateful. I know there's a lot of gems here for our audience to listen to, mate, and no doubt we'll get you back on at some point soon.
Yeah, I'll be ready. Thank you, guys.